Yeah, you ski fast. You race. But you're reckless. You rack up a lot. No consistency. That's what Creech has.
It doesn't win a medal.
It counts for a lot. It comes from a certain consideration for the sport. A desire to learn. That's something you never had. You never had any real education, did you? All you ever had was your skis. And that's not enough.
As I'm getting older, chip upon my shoulder, blown through life, you roll over and die. La, 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 la.
Hey guys, it's Streed, and today I'm going to be reviewing the late 60s sports drama, Downhill Racer. Downhill Racer was directed by Michael Ritchie, starred Robert Redford, Gene Hackman, and Camilla Sparv. The film is about a braggadocious skier with skyward ambitions named David Champlin, who joins an American skiing team led by coach Eugene Clare. Champlin gains a reputation for his recklessness and egotism, leading Clare to castigate him for his behavior. After Champlin fellow teammate Johnny Creech race downhill, Creech gets injured, rendering Champlin the team's last chance at winning the highly honored Olympics. But this insurmountable pressure leads to Champlin feeling an inescapable sense of existential dread, since he's yearned for achieving the status of other legendary skiers gone by. But even with this dread, Champlin is determined to win in the face of adversity. Welcome to the very first part of Fan Appreciation Month, a month dedicated to recommendations specifically from my fans. These are all films that I've never seen before, and that's practically the only rule. Don't put down a film that I've seen before. And luckily, I got some really interesting looking suggestions. Now, this film I've never actually heard of. I'm aware of some of the most obscure films ever made, like films that have never been reviewed on YouTube, films that are so obscure that I guarantee that most people living right now have never even seen it or never even aware of its existence. But this is one of those films that sort of slipped through the cracks because I love... See, my gimmick is I love covering obscure films. You know, whether they be good or bad, I can warn people of the bad, and I can recommend the good, like Figures in a Landscape, which is an actual masterpiece that deserves so much more recognition than it does. And luckily, it's starting to get a little bit more recognition. But anyways, I had never heard of this film. I've only seen a few Gene Hackman films. I don't even know if I've seen any Robert Redford films. I think I've seen him in a lot of TV, like a lot of TV shows from the 60s and the 70s or so. But I initially had my concerns when it came to this film because I'm not really a big fan of skiing or sports in general. But I think skiing is one of those sports that maybe I could, ease into because if this were a football film, I have absolutely no interest in football films. There is nothing interesting to me about football, so do not expect any reviews of any film that is tangentially football related because I will not watch it. But anyways, I had feared that this film would be dull, boring, generic, and kind of hard to understand, but I actually came out with a relatively positive experience. I didn't really learn anything much about skiing, but still, it was a very character-driven story that I found very interesting. And the best film I could compare it to is 5 Easy Pieces, which is another film that is extremely underrated and deserves a lot more love. It's like 5 Easy Pieces, but with skiing. And I actually watched this film with my good friend acknowledging our discontent. And it's been a while since me and him have watched something, and the main reason to do that because he's got some things going on in his life. It's nothing bad. It's just mainly adult things. He doesn't really have time to do that, but that's nothing against him. I hear a plane out. But yeah, we watched it, and we had a really good time. I ended up cracking a lot of jokes about the film. Like, not to make fun of it, I felt in a funny mood. And there's no easy way to transition into telling this joke, but there's a scene in the film where the main character, Champlet, he's carrying his skiing gear in this big bag, and I made this joke. I said, what the hell has he got in there, a bad dragon? And we both busted out laughing. That's gotta be one of my greatest jokes. And I really admired what the film was about at its core. I really admired the message, how the film deals with sort of creativity versus ego, and how ego can sort of stunt creativity. Because the thing is about our main character, Champlet, is he's very driven by one thing. It's not the passion for the sport. It's the need for recognition. He yearns for fame. And when you do something simply for the money or materialistic reasons, it sort of strips what you're doing of its value. Because I don't review films to make any money. I don't do it for recognition. Now listen, I've said before I would like recognition, but I don't solely do it for recognition or money. I do it because I like it. I'm good at it. And now for the strengths of the film, I thought it had a very existential new wave atmosphere. And this is something AOD brought up. And I love the coldness of it. It's indescribable. It's one of those films where it feels like kind of depressing, and you really feel the character's dread, especially towards the end of the film. And that's another thing. This film's got some interesting characters. Specifically, David Champlet. This guy is an asshole, but in a subtle way. He doesn't mistreat anyone, but he's so ego-driven. He's kind of charismatic, though. That's what keeps him from being completely unlikable. He's kind of charismatic, but he's so driven by his ego and just utter ambition that you think this guy is reckless, but you also kind of admire him a little bit. Now, me personally, I really did not like what he represented, and that was intentional. That's not even a mark against the film. That was intentional. I have a deep-seated hatred for people that they sort of do things just simply for soulless reasons. They do it for money, or they do it for recognition. There's plenty of other film critics that review films simply for money. They don't have any passion. They don't have any drive. It's just a work of pure ego. Jordy Johns. And that's sort of what David Champlet is. But you also kind of sympathize with him, because this is a heavy weight he's bearing when he has to basically win the fucking Olympics. And he's going up against this other dude, Weir, or something. And Weir almost wins until he fucking flunks it at the final thing. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Hackman's character, I really liked Hackman's character. He served as sort of the rationale to Champlet's sort of delusions of grandeur. Like, he literally tells him how it is. Like, he's got to have some love for the profession. He's got to be willing to learn. And listen, I may not review films simply for, materialistic reasons, but sometimes, and I will admit this, I'm going to be human, I'm not a perfect man. I don't want anyone to look up to me, honestly. I'm not the kind of person you should ever look up to. Like, I'm not evil or a degenerate or something, but I'm a flawed person. I'm a very flawed person, and I will admit, I have struggled with ego sometimes. Sometimes I believe that, my channel's the best. I'm the best reviewer. Everyone loves me. I've got to do this way or something like that. But the thing is, you have to pull that back. You have to bring yourself in, and you have to be modest. And that's something that I've learn to control now, but just in case in the future, Streed, if you're watching this, be modest. For the love of God, fuck off with the ego. Please. Little message to my future self, just in case I get out of line. You know, I listen to myself the most. But yeah, I enjoyed Hackman's character. I feel like we could have used more of him in the film. I think I wouldn't say he's underdeveloped. I just think he's underused in the film, and that's really one of the flaws of the film. He just doesn't have enough scenes. I think he could have had more screen time. And there are some great, thrilling POV shots of the racers and David Champlin. When he races, there's these amazing shots where you feel like you yourself are zipping and zooming through the mountain, and it makes your heart go up and down, and it's so incredible looking. And besides that, the film also has beautiful cinematography. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's done by Brian Probin, who did cinematography for films I've been wanting to see, like Poor Cow, Badlands, one called Shatter, and the cinematography is just so gorgeous. There's so many beautiful homes that are shown. There's beautiful shots of the landscapes. There's a brief part in the film, well, not brief. There's a part in the film where Champlin returns home and he goes to his father and he talks to him, and there's these beautiful countrysides. It's a very visually pleasing film. And besides that, I really love the incredible score. Now, I will say, though, the score, it might be polarizing for some people. I mean, not to me personally, or not that I'm really aware of that it's polarizing. But for me personally, it sort of sounded like a TV movie score. The film is shot very traditionally. Like, it's shot like, you know, it's cinematic. It's a very cinematic film. It's compelling, but it's like cinematic. But the score, it sounds so television-esque. Like, it sounds like the score you'd hear in like a TV movie. And there's also a psychedelic rock song in the party scene, which was amazing. I gotta look that up and find that because that sounded fucking awesome. And the score is done by Kenyon Hopkins. I think Kenyon Hopkins. I don't know how you say it, but Kenyon Hopkins. I think he does a pretty amazing job. I loved a lot of the songs in this film. They have sort of a bossa nova atmosphere, and if you guys know me, you know that I absolutely love bossa nova. It's a genre that always manages to chill me and just make me feel warm and at peace with everyone and everything. You know what I mean? It's not like a fucking hippie there. I mean, I am. Look at this shit. And now for the weaknesses. I felt that the romantic subplot with Carol was pretty pointless. She's kind of a boring character. She doesn't really fit in the story at all. And her chemistry with Champlin is pretty lacking. And a good, like, mid part of the film is dedicated to that. I found it pretty boring. But luckily, it ends up ending, and it ends in a funny way, where she's just droning on and on and on. And I'm feeling similar to David here, to where I'm like, come on, just get out of this movie. It's a great movie, and she's dragging it down, and he beeps the horn really rudely, and she's like, you know, she gets really offended like that, and she walks out, and I'm like, thank God! Me and AOD were like, thank God! She was really dragging the film down. Like, she's not annoying or anything, she's just kind of boring. But besides, she is beautiful, though, I will say. She's a very gorgeous actress. And maybe she was even good in other films, but here she just felt like an unneeded sort of slap-together side piece to sort of bloat the film. Well, not bloat the film, but add to the film, you know what I mean? And another flaw, another weakness for the film, is it's kind of predictable. You think of a sports drama. If and you've got like sort of the braggadocious dude who wants to he wants to make it. His coach is disapproving. He wants to win, and the ending, which I'll talk about. That's I'll just talk about it because I really want to get my thoughts out on that. But yeah, it's very predictable. You kind of see basically what's coming, and it's a film to where if you think about it, if you think about what kind of film this is going to be, you'll likely end up with what you're thinking. Like, it was kind of the opposite for me. I was expecting something boring, dull, and convoluted, but it actually came out pretty compelling and interesting. But now for the absolute worst aspect of the film, and for the person who recommended this, AC Marston, sorry if we may disagree on any of the points mentioned in this video, but I've got to be true to my convictions. I've got to be honest and state what I really think, but I really did not like the ending. The ending contradicts the entire film, because the entire film is sort of dedicated to trying to get Champlin off his high horse, to make him realize that he's not the greatest. Like, he's still great, but he doesn't need to have such an overblown ego to him. And the film ends with him actually winning. He actually gets what he wants. So the film, and not intentionally, the film unintentionally says that, if you're an ego-driven, materialistic asshole, well, you'll win. You'll get whatever you want. There you go. You win. And I really did not like that ending. That's basically what the ending felt like. It was so disappointing. I feel like the film would have benefited if Champlin lost and he sort of realized that enjoying the sport is the most important part. Not winning all the time. You do things for the love of doing them, not because you automatically get something for it. And I feel like the ending just heavily contradicts that mantra, and that's why I think this is probably one of the weakest endings I've ever seen in a film. Right up there with The Grapes of Death and Freddy vs. Jason and other films. But overall, I would have to rate this film an 8 out of 10. It's got some flaws, especially the ending. I really, like I said, I really dislike the ending. But other than that, I found myself really enjoying this film, and I would probably watch it again. It's for what it was. I think it works perfectly fine. It's very compelling. It's very existential. The performances are great. The music is great. The landscapes are breathtaking. So overall, I really enjoyed it, and I would like to thank you, AC Marston, for recommending this film. Well, guys, that was the review, and I will see you all next time.